It's raining on Dragonstone. They go on about how no one wants to help Cersei. Good thing for her no one knows she blew up the great sept of Baelor then. They're discussing their tactics, but Daenerys decides it's finally time to question Varys. Well, since until now they haven't discussed his allegiance, they haven't discussed their strategy or tactics or the status of Westeros, one must conclude they spent their trip listening to sick tunes. She questions Varys for his plot holes and character errors, and he says he's a people's man. Dany makes him swear his loyalty, and she threatens him. So that's what she meant when she said they'd begin. Melisandre arrives at this point, generally more lenient and forgiving, with all her Lord of Light mumbo-jumbo. She claims Dany might be the prince that was promised. Nothing remotely similar to Azor Ahai is said here. Dany objects, claiming that she's not a prince. Missandei tells her that in Valyrian, in that phrase, there is actually no specific mention of gender, so it can mean princess. So, no one's going to say she's not a princess either? Okay. So they discuss this new Jon Snow guy, and Dany sends a raven to invite him over. And bend the knee. Later, they're finally discussing their war plans. They seem to be disagreeing on everything, but then Tyrion says they'll be taking the Lannister seat, so everyone just nods for 2 minutes. In the next scene, the Hound travels north to... Okay, there's no Hound. There's a scene between Missandei and Grey Worm. And what's going on? Okay, on to the next scene. In Winterfell, Sansa, Jon, and Davos discuss the invitation from Dragonstone. But Davos goes all House MD on them and brilliantly deduces that if fire kills whites, then dragons might be useful in battle. Later, another raven appears from the Citadel about dragonglass. So Jon calls the big council thingy. He speaks of his intentions on meeting Dany in Dragonstone. They all object, especially Sansa, who apparently isn't briefed before the meetings. But then he tells her he's putting her in charge, and she's like, okay then. In King's Landing, Cersei unites the lords of Westeros, or at least those willing to listen, and tries to bring them to her cause by appealing to their racial prejudices. Good thing no one knows she blew up the Sept of Baelor, since especially Lord Tarly, on behalf of the other lords, say they are still bitter over that red wedding thing. About the dragon threat, Mastermind Qyburn, who even brings people back from the dead, says he's working on something. He brings Cersei to the crypt and reveals a ballista. At the Citadel, Sam wants to cure grayscale, using this cure for grayscale he found in a book. However, the Archmaester is having none of it, and despite claiming to be a scholar of the guy who cured it, and apparently spending some of his time treating and researching the disease, he never once tried that method since the guy who spent his life curing grayscale ended up with grayscale. I mean, what are the odds, right? Sam, once more, has none of it and goes all Ramsay Bolton on Jorah. And I swear, one of the writers used to write obscure kinky porn of some sort. I'm afraid this is going to hurt. If you could take off your shirt. You ever done this before? No, no one else would try this, so I'm the best you got. Again, I'm sorry. Please try not to scream. At the inn, Arya re-encounters Hot Pie. But I guess she wasted all her sympathy on Ed Sheeran, so she's got none left for Hot Pie. Hot Pie tells her her brother, cousin, Jon is the king in the north. Also, he tells her Cersei blew up the great sept of Baelor. Now hold your horses there a second. So everyone knows she did it? I could buy her having dismissed the incident with something along the lines of, they were all poisoned by our enemies, and that only a few rebellious folk theorized that the great sept was an inside job. But if it is known she did, why did they even crown her queen? Haven't we spent 2 seasons of the hype sparrow repeatedly telling us, 1, the people of the faith, and 2, you could kill some of them, but they were too many to be stopped. They couldn't all be inside the sept. They had jurisdiction over the crown in some aspects. Was there a clause in the agreement wherein it was written that they'd lose their rights if there was to be a terrorist attack? I mean, come on. Meanwhile, Bronn rides north to search for... Oh, it isn't Bronn. It's the Sand Snakes. They're talking about the Mountain, who they dream of killing. Of course, that would cancel Clegane Bowl. Someone ought to do something about it. Euron then appears out of nowhere, killing 2 of the Sand Snakes, while saying, Clegane Bowl's fucking confirmed. I didn't even know you could sneak up on the main ship of a fleet with another fleet of 1,000 ships. Euron must be one hell of a captain, a lot better than I thought. Euron figures, since he's there, he might as well kidnap Ilaria, the other Sand Snake, and Yara. The Prince of Winterfell has a chance to do something about it, but he throws himself in the water. It's implied the reason for it is that he's broken, but if you ask me, he made the right call. That way, he can still live to witness Clegane Bowl.